Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Today I bring to you a video on the best Fighting Spirit Super Bow builds, the Cooking Combo. And this video explores the new Fighting Spirit skill introduced in Curse of the Wandering Flames. And this skill will allow you to do more damage when your special gauge is full. In addition, this skill is best used with the Black Diablos Bow and the Kushala Bow due to the time limit for Fighting Spirit. But in case you're wondering, here's why Fighting Spirit works best with the Super Bows. And the Super Bows I'm talking about are the Black Diablos Bow and the Kushala Bow, as they can do the most amount of damage in the shortest amount of time. They're currently the most powerful raw and ice weapons in the game, and this is due to the charge level 3, which is 2 blinks for damage level 4 bow mechanic. These super weapons can end hunts quickly, as there is the 20-second limit for Fighting Spirit. But it's not all bad if it's a short hunt. In fact, you can fire your special skill after the 20 seconds and attack until your special gauge is full again for longer hunts. So even if you do end up not destroying it within 20 seconds, you can use your special skill, and if it doesn't die there, guess what? You can keep attacking it, special go gets full again, and then you can go ahead and finish off the monster if it's not already taken out by the time you get that second boost for Fighting Spirit. Next up, we have how Fighting Spirit works. When the special gauge becomes full, damage dealt increases by X% for 20 seconds. At level 1 you have 10%, level 2 you have 15%, level 3 you get 20%, level 4 you get 25%, and if you get the interval, at level 5, 30%. For now, the highest level you can get to is level 3 using the Rajang Mail and Rajang Vambraces. And Fighting Spirit can activate at the start of hunts if your special gauge is full. So if you end up not using your special gauge for a lot of hunts, like I did for a lot of destroying a lot of my 8-star Rajangs because it ends in literally 20 seconds, then Fighting Spirit is amazing. And this really cool thing about Fighting Spirit is you can use cooking to activate Fighting Spirit. Now the thing is, as long as your special gauge is full, Fighting Spirit will activate. So you can use cooking to forcibly activate Fighting Spirit. Eat steaks from cooking to fill your special gauge when it's empty. So if you happen to get out of a battle where you're like, oh, I had to use my special skill, as long as you have meat, and you like meat, well, guess what? You're going to be able to fill your special gauge and then activate it again at the start of the hunt, like you see right here. Pretty cool feature. I'm pretty sure Fighting Spirit and cooking was considered whenever they were like making the skill. We're like, hey, let's do this. And it's a pretty cool combination. Moving on, we have the data, and here's the Fighting Spirit damage comparison. So how do Fighting Spirit builds measure up to the other top builds? Well, we're going to use the top 5 builds for the 2 strongest bows in the game, in respective to their elements. These are the 2 super weapons, which are the Black Diablos Bow and the Kushala Bow. For Black Diablos, it's the King of Ra. For the Kushala Bow, the Queen of Ice, or King of Ice, however you want to put it. And due to Fighting Spirit's time limitation, it's best used with weapons that can inflict a high amount of damage in a short amount of time. For the data, there is not an enormous difference between the top builds using Fighting Spirit and those not using it. For example, if we take a look at the Kushala Bow builds, which you see on top right here, there's only a 1 to a little over 2% difference. So it's not, unless you're really picky, you're not really going to notice it at all. And for Black Diablos, if you take a look, it's literally less than 1%. So yes, it does highest damage data-wise, but the thing about it is, this is if on paper everything was perfect, and we'll mention more about that later. But yeah, if you look for the Kushala Bow, a little over 2% from the bottom one, and for the Black Diablos Bow, literally less than 1%. So don't let the FOMO get to you. Don't worry, you're not missing out on anything important. And now this brings us on to the builds, starting off with the first super weapon, the best Black Diablos Bow Fighting Spirit build. This build uses Fighting Spirit level 1 for 10% extra damage. This build does 4,234 practical theoretical damage. And Burst level 3 tacks on more extra damage and helps if the battle goes beyond Fighting Spirit's timer. Thankfully, thanks to Black Diablos Bow's Pierce level 4, it's really easy to maintain and keep Burst. And to use this build, you need the Black Diablos Bow at grade 8 or at grade 10 or as high as you can get it, the Azaratlos Helmet at grade 6, the Rajang Mail at grade 6, the Rothian Vambraces at grade 6, the Rajang Coil at grade 8, and the Zinogre Greaves at grade 6. On to the next build, and we have the best Kushala Bow Fighting Spirit build. For the most powerful ice weapon in the game currently, this build uses Fighting Spirit level 2 for 15% extra damage. This build does 5,134 practical theoretical damage. And if you notice, it's kind of expensive as it requires 3 grade 8 pieces, but it provides Part Breaker level 1. So it's the most useful combination out of all the combinations you can have for this particular build. In addition, you will be using the Coral Puke helmet at grade 8 for your melee builds, and you likely already have the Gyrototus Greaves at grade 6 and Rajang Coil at grade 8 if you're looking to get to focus level 5. To use this build, you need the Kushala Bow at grade 8 or at grade 10 or as high as you can get it, the Coral Puke helmet at grade 8, the Kushala Mail at grade 8, the Rajang Vambraces at grade 6, Rajang Coil at grade 8, and the Gyrototus Greaves at grade 6. Last but not least, unfortunately, as cool as it is, Fighting Spirit does have its limitations. It's important to note that the theoretical practical damage doesn't take into account dodging monster attacks, weapons abilities, etc. However, that doesn't mean the data doesn't mean nothing. As someone that's used data to reach the highest rank in Pokemon Go PvP and was the only person to break a meta in Season 1 of Go Battle League, the thing about it is data is useful. And unfortunately, despite the data, Fighting Spirit isn't very consistent as you have to have your special gauge active for the boost. No special gauge, no boost. And then at the end of 20 seconds, you have to fire your special skill and then get your gauge all the way up again to get your boost back. Which means the most you can probably have the boost active is twice per hunt. And this is going to be more in Elder Dragon interceptions because those hunts are longer. And despite this, if you put the data side by side, Fighting Spirit builds are also barely better than builds without them. It's not all about the damage. Big numbers, I like big numbers, but the thing about it is, if it's barely a difference between something else, there's no reason for you to switch into this one or have to adapt to it. Per the data, Fighting Spirit full drift smelt builds also lose to the top builds without them, and those builds are more consistent. So if we're talking about full drift smelt, guess what? The other top builds are actually better and more consistent, at least from the data. So you don't have to go full, let me switch to the Fighting Spirit build now that I've seen the data. No, you don't have to do that.
Why you? That does it! I hope you like black and blue because you're gonna be wearing it for a while!
And that's what happens when women have Fighting Spirit. When they are mad, they are incredibly terrifying, especially Chi-Chi. So make sure you don't insult Chi-Chi or the equivalent of Chi-Chi in your life. Otherwise, you will regret it. Hopefully this video helps you out with Fighting Spirit. And I know some of you are like, wait, why didn't you go over melee? Well, Fighting Spirit with melee isn't really worth it. You won't have the opportunity to dish out as much damage as ranged weapons would in the period that it's active. And if you're using melee, you'll want to use your special skill anyways as you're in range of close range monster attacks. For example, dual blades. Demon Blade Dance does a lot of damage. You wouldn't want to hold that if you have your special skill full, so just use it right away, and it has a lot more benefit than you holding it overall than you would with Fighting Spirit, because theoretical damage does not take into account for special skills, etc. With that being said, please do me a huge favor, like, subscribe, and comment for the YouTube algorithm. Hopefully this video does help you out again with Fighting Spirit. It's really cool. It can help in some instances, especially for the super weapons. Good luck on your grinds, good luck on your drops, and I will see y'all on the next video.